Hello and welcome to a fresh new episode of Science Monitor, our weekly update on all that is happening in the field of science and technology in and around the country. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor with you. In this episode, we'll try to understand many factors related to the phenomenon of earthquake. We will also see what the experts have to say about the forecasting of earthquakes. But first, let us take a look at the headlines. Gigantic earthquake devastates Nepal, sends shockwaves through northern India. Researchers had warned of such an earthquake in the Himalayan region. Rice not loaded with chemicals. Organic farming of folk rice gives new hope. A self-testing kit for HIV/AIDS risk groups to help in timely diagnosis and management of the disease. In our In Focus segment today, we will discuss about the causes and impacts of earthquakes. What are the do's and don'ts when earthquake strikes? Special segment on survival during earthquakes. And now news in detail. Nepal, our beautiful neighbour, has turned into ruins. The earthquake that devastated our adjoining neighbour on 25th of April 2015 also sent shockwaves through northern parts of our country. The earthquake has taken thousands of lives and left the rest in constant fear. But wasn't the disaster anticipated? Some of you might remember that Science Monitor carried a research study on 21st of February this year that warned of a major earthquake in the Himalayan region. How do the experts identify an upcoming earthquake and what needs to be done for a decent earthquake forecasting model? Here's a report.
25th April 2015 has been marked as a red-letter day in the pages of geological history. Measuring 7.8 on the Richter scale, Nepal's recent earthquake, which also affected parts of northern India, is the largest since the 1934 Bihar quake, which measured 8.2. The earthquake has emerged as a great humanitarian crisis, causing huge damage in terms of life and property. It has destroyed World Heritage sites and triggered deadly avalanches around Mount Everest. While the earthquake of Nepal has come as a great shock, scientists have been predicting the occurrence for a while now. According to experts, Nepal is particularly prone to earthquakes as it sits on the boundary of two massive tectonic plates, the Indo-Australian and Asian plates. Geologically, the collision of these plates has given rise to Himalayas and with them the earthquakes. A team of research scientists digging into the central Himalayas had recently warned of an impending great quake with a magnitude close to 8 in the Himalayan region. The research team comprised of Dr. C.P. Rajendran from the Jawaharlal Nehru Centre for Advanced Scientific Research, Dr. Kushala Rajendran from Indian Institute of Science, and Dr. Biju John from the National Institute of Rock Mechanics.
The central segment is considered to be a seismic gap, which means that for hundreds of years there were no great earthquake. So at the same time, you have to remember that there is a crustal accretion that is going on there because of the movement of the Indian plate, which goes under the Himalaya. So there is a crustal strain that is accumulating all along the Himalayan arc. So it is calculated to be about 2 to 3 millimeters per every year. So the strain is accumulating 2 to 3 millimeters every year. So if you calculate that in terms of 100 years or a century, it means that 2 centimeters of slip is accumulating. So if there is no earthquake for 700 years, that is what we found out. It means that more than 8 to between 10 to 12 meters of slip is just there without being accommodated in earthquakes. So the slip has to be released through big earthquake.
They had also stated that the earthquake, which would have great impact, would be a result of the stress build-up in this area due to the movement of Indian tectonic plate towards Tibet. While evidences show an ongoing northward movement of the Indian plate towards Tibet, resulting in great strain, the region of central Himalayas has been exceptionally calm for many centuries now. This is referred to as a seismic gap. In the past many decades, only 2 earthquakes have occurred in this region during 13th and 14th centuries AD. The magnitudes of these earthquakes weren't large enough to release the strain that is building within the plates. This means that these regions have been accumulating a large amount of strain for years now, which will be released in the form of great earthquakes in the coming times.
If you are a rice lover, then it is time to beware. For you may be ingesting unwanted doses of fertilizers and pesticides through your favorite rice dish. To solve this problem and to conserve the folk rice varieties of India, Agriculture Training Center at West Bengal's Fulia is running a unique research program in organic farming, successfully initiating and implementing cultivation of folk rice in the state. The program offers a new hope towards reducing chemicals on our plate. Take a look.
A day's meal can be considered incomplete in India if it doesn't include rice. One of the staple foods of Asian countries, rice is perhaps the oldest and most important crop known. But are we aware that the high-yielding rice varieties that reach our plates today are heavily laced with the residues of chemical fertilizers and pesticides used on them? And this is when India is home to more than 82,000 traditional folk rice varieties that can compete with the modern high-yielding varieties in terms of output, and that too with the least cost technology and chemical abuse. Now, the unique folk rice conservation initiative at the Agricultural Training Center at Fulia, West Bengal, is offering a new ray of hope to the revival of India's folk rice varieties through organic farming. This one-of-its-kind research program brings together researchers and farmers to restore organic farming of traditional Indian varieties of rice. Although the high-yielding varieties of rice were introduced in India during the Green Revolution of 60s to combat famine and food shortage, yet over the years, management of these crops have become a problematic affair. By consuming more water, chemical fertilizers and pesticides, these crops have slowly but steadily reduced the natural fertility of soil and resulted in environmental pollution. Besides being expensive, they also have a negative impact on health as they are loaded with chemical residue. In this context, the Agricultural Training Center, acting as a biodiversity conservation farm, has set a new record by distributing seeds of about 350 folk varieties among farmers during 2009-2014.
We are following single seedling planting, what we call SRI. Actually, this method was initially adopted by Mr. Aparanam Pillai in Madras province in 1904. Now, even these varieties, all varieties can be grown with single seedling. We transplant them 10 inches apart and line to line is 12 inches apart, and we get profuse tillering and good growth and also amazing graining.
The center has successfully introduced the farmers of West Bengal to cultivation of many nutritious and scented varieties of folk rice like Kala Bhat, Radha Tilak, along with non-scented varieties like Kerala Sundari and Bahurupi.
From February in 2013, we have distributed 126 rice varieties among 80 farmers. It's amazing for us, and we feel the farmers understand the value of these folk rice varieties, and they are getting the amazing yield, also the nutrition, and with low cost of cultivation.
farmers have been able to produce high yield using less expensive organic farming techniques, which include the use of a common water fern called azolla and vermi-compost as manure. The centre, which has a collection of more than 300 folk rice varieties, also offers training programs on sustainable agriculture. As experts predict a great agrarian crisis due to uncurbed use of fertilizers and pesticides, organic farming with folk varieties could indeed be a viable way ahead.
Social stigma, fear of discrimination, and sometimes abuse. Common factors that often discourage the HIV/AIDS infected from availing treatment. Not only this, these factors along with the lack of adequate facilities often discourage the high-risk groups also from being tested. But now there is a new hope for these risk groups in the form of BioSure HIV self-test. This novel HIV testing kits allows the risk groups to test for HIV within the comforts of their home. Take a look.
According to the WHO statistics, there are about 35 million HIV-infected people around the world. With the infection rapidly spreading, it is also reported that India has the third highest number of people living with HIV. Today, many antigen antibody and RNA-based tests are available to screen HIV. However, shame, discrimination and stigma associated with the diagnosis often amounts to so much that every one among the 7 infected choose to remain uninformed about his or her HIV status. But with the new HIV self-testing kit, the conditions are set to improve as far as the diagnosis of the disease is concerned. Using this kit, high-risk groups can get the results in less than half an hour within the comfort of their homes.
I think a home test can help reduce undiagnosed HIV or late diagnosed HIV. We think it's a good thing. I am concerned about the amount of support that someone who tests at home and tests positive, what would they do, where will they go, will they know where to go?
The kit called BioSure HIV self-test works in a similar way to a pregnancy test, measuring levels of antibodies in a person's blood. The test detects antibodies on a small drop of blood taken from the fingertip using a lancet. These antibodies are detectable 3 months after the HIV infection is caught. 2 purple lines appear if the result is positive. After that, individual can opt for further blood tests to confirm start the treatment. The test claims to have a 99.7% accuracy rate. The HIV self-diagnosis kit has recently started its sales in the United Kingdom. The test will surely help in timely diagnosis and management of HIV/AIDS.
And now it is time to take a short break. We'll be right back. Keep watching Science Monitor. Welcome back after the break. You're watching Science Monitor. Let us now have a look at some important science and technology activities happening in India and abroad in our segment Science Express.
NASA, in search of life beyond our solar system, has launched a new multidisciplinary initiative which will search for planets with the greatest potential for sustaining life. The initiative, called the Nexus for Exoplanet System Science, or NEXSS, brings together experts and research teams from more than a dozen different universities and institutes to look at existing exoplanet data. This is in order to discover the possibility of life beyond Earth. Nexus will be led cooperatively by 3 researchers: Natalie Batalha of NASA's Ames Research Center, Dawn Gelino of the NASA Exoplanet Science Institute, and Anthony Del Genio of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies. In a proud moment for Indian science, Professor K. Vijay Raghavan, Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, has been formally inducted as a foreign associate of the US National Academy of Sciences. The induction ceremony was recently conducted at Washington. Professor Vijay Raghavan was elected as a foreign associate of NAS last year for his outstanding contributions to biological research. Considered as one of the most prestigious scientific society, the National Academy of Sciences has approximately 2,250 members with nearly 440 foreign associates and 200 Nobel laureates. Professor Vijay Raghavan is known for his study on neuronal circuits in the brain, motor system, and the developments of muscles. In a rare and interesting discovery, a group of researchers from Chile have unearthed fossils of a strange dinosaur. The fossil exhibits an unusual combination of features related to dinosaurs, theropods, birds, and platypus. The fossils, which were discovered from Patagonian region of Azen, belongs to a previously unknown dinosaur lineage and has been named Chilosaurus diegosuarezzi. The fossils show skull and neck resembling primitive long-necked dinosaurs and vertebra similar to primitive meat-eating theropods. While the creature had robust arms, it had just 2 blunt fingers on each hand, was 4-toed feet, and had a bird-like pelvis. The dinosaur is said to be herbivorous, with a beak and leaf-shaped teeth. In a recent development, a memorandum of understanding has been signed between the Department of Land Resources and National Remote Sensing Center ISRO on 29th April. The MOU has been signed on the development of web geoportal Srishti and mobile app Drishti for monitoring of Integrated Watershed Management Program. Under this, NRSC will design and develop the required technological interventions for the monitoring and evaluation of watersheds through the Bhuvan Geo web portal Srishti and the mobile application Drishti.
Measuring 7.8 on Richter scale, the earthquake that hit Nepal recently has emerged as a major humanitarian crisis. While experts warn that the quake is just one among the many yet to hit the Himalayan region, it is time to gear up our knowledge and resources to counter the possible impacts. In our In Focus segment today, we will follow the journey of seismic waves as they originate from the interior of the earth and travel to their epicenters.
The recent earthquake in Nepal and northern parts of India has left the world shaken. People are still in a state of shock after watching the disastrous impacts of a series of tremors. While ancient man feared earthquakes as wrath of gods, today we know exactly how earthquakes are caused. They are a result of the sudden release of energy from the Earth's crust. According to geologists, millions of years ago, all the land of the Earth was joined together as one large supercontinent known as Pangaea. About 200 million years ago, Pangaea began to drift apart. It broke first into 2 larger pieces. The continent in the north was named Laurasia, and the southern continent was called Gondwana land by the geologists. The 2 large continents continue to break apart into smaller continents as they exist today. And according to the geologists, they are still in motion. The breakup of Pangaea is explained by plate tectonics. It states that Earth's outer shell or lithosphere consists of large rigid plates. These plates move apart at ocean ridges, come together at subduction zones, or slip past one another along fault lines. So the Earth's surface is composed of rocky plates, which are not continuous but fractured and in pieces. These rocky plates, which may be 80 to 100 km thick, drift on top of a soft mantle moving both horizontally and vertically. Now, In the course of their movement, it is common for these plates to rub and slide against each other, a rough frictional process that builds immense pressure along their margins. The pressure eventually breaks the rocks, creating energetic seismic waves that travel through the layers of the earth to reach its surface and is felt as quakes. The spot underground where the rock breaks is called the focus of the earthquake. The place right above the focus, on top of the ground, is called the epicenter of the earthquake. The earthquake is more devastating if it has a shallow focus, as was the case with the recent Nepal earthquake. The Indian subcontinent has a devastating history of earthquakes. According to the experts, the major reason for the high frequency and intensity of the earthquakes is that the Indian plate is driving into Asia at a rate of approximately 47 millimeters per year. It is important to note that India is divided into 4 seismic zones, and according to geographical statistics of India, almost 54% of the land is vulnerable to earthquakes. Among India's seismic zones, the zone that includes the region of Kashmir, the western and central Himalayas, North Bihar, the northeast Indian region and the Rann of Kutch is prone to maximum seismic activity.
Short-term prediction is not possible as on today because nowhere we could do that. But there is certainly a lot of progress is made in seismological research all over the world, where at least in certain places like in Himalaya, we should be able to tell that this particular segment is prone for earthquake. These studies include geological studies. These studies include crustal measurements, include looking at the seismicity pattern. So there are areas where you don't have earthquake at all, like Bhutan. Bhutan segment is considered to be a gap. So all these regions require closer monitoring, and that's the way we advance in earthquake forecasting.
Today we are much familiar with the terms like Richter scale. Thanks to the development of technology, there is a specialized branch of geology that deals with the study of earthquakes, known as seismology. The strength or magnitude of the earthquake is determined by measuring the amplitude of the seismic waves recorded on a seismograph and the distance of the seismograph from the earthquake. These are put into a formula which converts them to a magnitude, which is a measure of the energy released by the earthquake on a scale called Richter magnitude scale. Now, if you are wondering what measurement on Richter scale is really devastating, here is the answer. An earthquake of magnitude 8.6 releases energy equivalent to about 10,000 atomic bombs, of the kind developed in World War II. For every unit increase in magnitude, there is a roughly 30-fold increase in the energy released. This means that a magnitude 6 earthquake releases approximately 30 times more energy than an earthquake of 5 magnitude. We need more research and innovative technology to keep an eye on the underground activities of the Earth. Time has come for the world to unite and work towards developing groundbreaking technology to minimize the loss of humanity.
While that was for the technicalities of how and what causes an earthquake, a vital question remains. How to survive during an earthquake? What are the do's and don'ts when you feel the tremors? Where here is the answer for you.
It is often observed that major calamities during earthquakes result from poor quality buildings. Hence, the most advanced preparation in terms of earthquake could be constructing strong and earthquake-resistant buildings and homes. Not panicking is the mantra when the disaster strikes. The best escape includes staying away from toppling furniture and glass windows and quickly moving out into open spaces.
Whenever an earthquake occurs, the first thing which sets in is panic. So the immediate precaution to be taken is to avoid panic. And it is people like us from the civil defense who are trained in panic management. They can contribute a lot for panic avoiding in the public. Secondly, if you are in a building, it is the best to come out of the building and move in an open area.
If moving out is not possible, then you can seek shelter under a strong table or similar furniture. Always take care of saving your head first. Lifts are to be avoided during earthquakes. Also, it is wise to shut off gas valves and unplug electrical cords to prevent further damage. Those on the roads can slowly pull over to the left side of the road and shut off the engine until the tremor subsides. But be careful to stay away from block walls, vending machines, tall buildings, telephone poles and dangling power lines.
In addition, if you are driving a vehicle, it is best to stop and come out of the vehicle rather than keep sitting in the vehicle. And as far as if you are in a school or somewhere where it is taking time to come out, it is better to go to a corner rather than even if you are ducking under a almirah or a wooden shelf, it is better to duck in a corner rather than being in the center, because when the collapse occurs, when the structure collapses, it falls like this and a triangle is formed. So the person in the center will get killed first. If you are in the corners, you will get saved. So that is the best and immediate precaution to be taken for an earthquake.
Passengers on the train are advised not to exit the train in panic through windows or doors, and those near the shore should immediately seek the safety of high ground. Earthquakes are often followed by aftershocks. Hence, alertness is required for a few days following any major earthquake.
Well, that is all for this episode of Science Monitor. Do tell us how do you like our program. You can send your feedback and suggestions. Our email ID is news@vigyanprasar.gov.in. You can also write into us at Vigyan Prasar C24, Qutub Institutional Area, New Delhi 110016. Well, that is all for today. We'll be back with fresh news stories on science and technology again next week. Till then, stay tuned to Rajya Sabha TV and think scientific.